My grandma eats everything with bread, even pasta. My mom does the same, as did I. I grew up this way. I did not know anything else. Only when I moved to Moscow and then to Jerusalem, I saw that there are other options. It took me a long time to realize that what I experienced in my family was trauma. During the war, there was a famine. People had to live on the limited and restricted amount of bread. There was a time when a small piece of bread was all they could get. In summer, they could grow some vegetables in their gardens, those who had gardens. But at winter, they had to prepare some pickles and jams. My family still does it, although they realize that it takes too much time and energy, and it is way better to buy it. But they still do. They still prepare. Another post-war trauma I had a chance to see in my family and friends is hospitality. Those who lived through the war welcome strangers, feed guests, and support needy around them. Comparing us to them, I think we are lucky today. We don't have a war and bombs. We don't experience famine, although rice and pasta did disappear from our supermarket shelves for a week or two. But nevertheless, we experience trauma now too. We too live through the crisis, which will shape our behavior in the future. What will it be? What habits will be developed after the coronavirus crisis is over? Perhaps we will wash our hands more often than necessary. Perhaps some of us will continue to wear masks in public long after the pandemic is over. I don't know. The philosopher Bernard Henry Levy wrote a book, The Virus in the Age of Madness. In it, he tries to analyze what has been happening to us and to the world during the pandemic. In it, he uses a famous Hillel saying to make his point. The saying goes this way: if I am not for myself, who will be for me? The world, Levy argues, is becoming more and more closed. It seems like people care less and less about what happens outside our homes, outside our shells and our bubbles. Some of it is caused by the necessity to self-isolate. But it is more than this. He writes, Hillel followed this saying immediately by asking this question: if I am only for myself, what am I? Notice that Hillel said what, not who. He wanted us to understand clearly that if I am only for me, I become what? A neutral being without qualities, a half-being, a thing. If I gaze in the meadow of this me, he insisted, if I continue myself within the me substance and the perversing ego, then I am not much of anything. I am a subject without a predicate, a thing without qualification. Then Levy goes on and points out that the world today is worshipping a religion called the cult of me, the ultimate stage of individualism, amplified by the genuine necessity to self-isolate. Is this the legacy we want to pass to future generations? Is this how we want to be seen from the future? There is an important detail in this week's Torah portion. The first time Isaac was mentioned in the Torah after Abraham nearly sacrificed him is in Genesis 24. Isaac had just come back from the place called Be'er Lahairoi, for he was settled in the region of the Negev. He did not come back home with his father after that day. He did not come back for his mother's funeral when Abraham bought the cave of Machpelah, which will become the family burial place. He came back to meet Rebekah, his future wife. We will hear the story of Rebekah tomorrow, read by Sydney. What is important is the place where Isaac went after Akedatu. It is the same place where 10 chapters earlier, in Genesis 16, God spoke to 8 chapters earlier, God spoke to Hagar and promised her to save her life and the life of her son Ishmael and to make them a great nation. It is the same place where Hagar and Ishmael settled after being driven away by Abraham and Sarah. In other words, Isaac used his crisis, his trauma, to go to Ishmael, his brother, and make peace with him. Later, they will appear together at the funeral of their father Abraham. It is our choice what we will make of our traumas. Some of us choose to go inside and worship individualism. Others use it as an opportunity to unite, make peace, and heal old wounds. What is the legacy you want to leave after our crisis, the coronavirus crisis, after our trauma? In one of the last books of Jonathan Sacks, the book Morality, Restoring the Common Good and Divided Times, Jonathan Sacks, Zichrono Livracha, wrote the following, and I will finish my Dvar Torah with his words. Love your neighbor. Love the stranger. Hear the cry of the otherwise unheard. Liberate the poor from their poverty. Care for dignity of all. Let those who have more than they need share their blessings with those who have less. Feed the hungry, house the homeless, and heal the sick in body and mind. Fight injustice, whoever it is done by and whoever it is done against. And do these things because, being human, we are bound by a covenant of human solidarity, whatever our color of culture, class, or creed. These are moral principles, not economic or political ones. They have to do with conscience, not wealth or power. But without them, freedom will not survive. The free market and liberal democratic state together will not save liberty, because liberty can never be built by self-interest alone. I-based societies all eventually die. Other-based societies survive. Morality is not an option. It is an essential. Shabbat Shalom.